There's a very, very serious problem going on in the world today. It's one thing for terrorists to attack innocent civilians in Israel. They're terrorists after all. But when the mainstream media is not tolerant of the voice of reason, of logical arguments to stand up and defend innocent civilians, now you know you've got a very serious problem on your hands. Take a look at this TV show host interviewing British Member of Parliament Kemi Badenoch about Israel's right to defend itself. It's quite disturbing. Take a listen.
Earlier this week, the Prime Minister joined with Mr. Macron and Mr. Carney in criticising Israel. Mr. Netanyahu responded by accusing him of supporting murderers, rapists, and baby killers. Was the Israeli leader right to say that?
Well, I think the first thing to say on this issue is that if Hamas is praising your actions, you've probably done something wrong. Hamas is a terrorist group that is, making the lives of the people in Gaza, the Palestinians in Gaza.
That's what Mr. Netanyahu
horrible.
said. Are you agreeing with his language?
So what I'm saying is that Israel is fighting a war where they want to get 58 hostages who have not been returned. That is what all of this is about. And they have said there won't be a ceasefire until they get their people back. What we need to make sure is that we're on the side that is going to eradicate Hamas. We need that to happen if we're ever going to get a two-state solution and end this war.
But does that mean that you, A, support the current Israeli action and that actually you think that Mr. Netanyahu's language on this is justified?
I'm not here to police the language of the Prime Minister of Israel.
I'm not asking you to police it. I'm asking...
What he has said, he sees this...
People need to know where you stand.
Yeah, but I've been very clear where I stand. Hamas is a terrorist group. They are not our friends.
I'm talking about what
Trevor,
you think about the Israelis'
Yes, but it's all related. Who funds Hamas? Iran. An enemy of this country. An enemy of this country. Israel is fighting a proxy war on behalf of the UK, just like Ukraine is on behalf of the Western Europe against Russia. We have to get serious. We have to get serious. There was a terrorist plot in London against the Israeli embassy. We saw 2 Jewish members of the Israeli embassy in DC killed. Whose side are we on? We need to make sure that the hostages are returned. No one wants to see a war in Gaza. Palestinians are suffering. And Netanyahu is complaining that he thinks our leaders are carrying out the wrong action. He has every right to say that. What I want to see is Keir Starmer making sure that he is on the right side of British national interest. That cannot be on the side of Hamas.
I'm asking you about the Israeli language and Israeli action. Are you actually equating the Israeli action in Gaza with Ukrainians?
So Israel is fighting a war. Israel is fighting a war. It is not for me to police exactly how they are doing that. It is not a genocide, as people are saying. There are a lot of things which we can criticize Israel on, which I have done in terms of how they may carry out some of these actions. But the bottom line is they are fighting a terrorist group that is trying to destroy that country. They want to get their hostages back. And if Hamas is praising the actions of Macron and Starmer, something is not right.
This morning,
it
doesn't sound like you're criticizing anything that the Israelis do.
That's not true. I have criticized things before, but right now there are 58 hostages. There are 58 hostages who have not been returned home. If you sat where I sat and spoke to the mothers of those hostages, like I did, who were talking just a year ago, 2 years ago, about posters of their children being ripped down while they hadn't come home, I think that we need to recognize this is a very difficult situation, but I do not want to be in a position where a terrorist group is praising my actions, and that is where Keir Starmer has found himself. I do not think that we should be doing anything that is not in the national interest of this country. An Iran-backed terrorist organisation is not one that we should be getting praise from.
It's very difficult to listen to this TV host, incredulous that a member of the British Parliament is actually able to support Israel. I mean, hostages, we're trying to get our hostages home. Is that not justified? She talks about Israel's right to defend itself. And then the host somehow tries to say incredulously, like, does that mean you support Benjamin Netanyahu? As if he is the devil incarnate. When Hamas, she says, is endorsing you and thanking you, then you know that you're on the wrong side of history. As Jews, we've been around for a very, very long time. And this is not the first time that we've experienced such systemic hatred. There's something called a blood libel, which was a terrible, terrible calamity that took place for about 1,000 years until the early 20th century. The blood libel was born out of sheer, utter, and shameless ignorance. It was an accusation against the Jewish people that they were slaughtering Christian children in order to use their blood for ritual sacrifice. Now, that's a little bit difficult to believe in light of the fact that blood is prohibited, human blood is prohibited to be consumed according to the Torah. It's not kosher. Not only human blood, but even the blood of a chicken is prohibited. If we open a chicken egg and we find a spot of blood in the chicken, then the entire egg needs to be thrown out. We don't even eat a spot of blood in our chicken egg. Never mind human blood. It's unthinkable. Yet in the Middle Ages, the Christian priests would arouse the crowds and tell them that the Jewish people had somehow kidnapped or slaughtered a Christian child in order to use their blood for the baking of the matzahs, the Passover matzah. Now, at least one source has attributed this to the fact that the bread of communion in the church sometimes would turn red, and after it was left out for a long time. What they didn't know in those days, that there was such a thing as mold spores, which were green or red, and they would tell the masses, the ignorant masses, that maybe the Jews had come in the middle of the night and they'd beaten the communion, which maybe had represented the blood of their Savior or the body of the Savior, and now it was bleeding. A lot of confusion. Yet Jewish people suffered tremendously from the blood libel, because the masses would come out with pitchforks and axes on a Sunday morning after the church service, and they would pillage and plunder the Jewish homes. They would raze and burn them to the ground. This is something which the Jewish people suffer from tremendously. The last recorded blood libels in the 20th century were in 1928 in Messina, New York, when a Christian child disappeared on Yom Kippur, and a Jewish person was blamed for having kidnapped the child and using the blood for somehow some Jewish ritual observance. It was debunked. It was it was proven to be false, but not after the damage had been done. Another very, very famous one was in Ukraine in 1913, when another Christian child had disappeared, and a Jew by the name of Mendel Bayless, who was a brick factory supervisor in the area, he was blamed, and this caused an international uproar, an international riots against the Jewish people erupted, just like what we're seeing today. When I was growing up in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, we learned about blood libels as acts of ancient history. Anti-Semitism was in the history section of the library, not in the current newspapers. It was born out of utter and shameless ignorance, and we were convinced that this can never happen again. Yet today we see that the blood libel is rearing its ugly head, when the Jewish people are accused of genocide, of killing babies, when all that we want to do is to bring our hostages home and to make sure that such a catastrophe never happens again. Yet the mainstream media refuses to allow us the privilege of living in peace. The Torah assures us that those who bless you will be blessed, and those who curse you will be cursed. Those who stand against the Jews will be reduced into the dustbins of history. And those who stand with the Jews, like the courage of this politician, Kemi Badenoch, they will be blessed and they will rise. God bless you, Kemi, and people who stand with you. Thank you for supporting truth, honesty, integrity. Thank you for standing with the Jewish people.